Good afternoon, everyone. Stand up, don't forget to silence your cell phones. As our Rotarian of the day, Jeff comes up to give us the prayer, pledge, and four-way test.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please join me in prayer. Our Lord God, please bless Rotarians everywhere. Please bless our club and our projects. Please bless the food that we have eaten today and the hands that prepared it. Please be with us and watch over us. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now four-way test. First, is the truth. Second, is the prayer of all concerned. Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships. And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you, Jeff. Don't forget the cart buckets for Alzheimer's research. Put in a donation. And last week we collected $27. Is there one or two people that can make a $10 match? Okay, Jay, thank you. Okay, visitors.
All right, we've got 3 visiting Rotarians today. You can please give us a wave when I say your name. Alfie Cotfield? Cofield. Ron May? Very simple. I like it. And Jan Harandon. Horden. All right, I will not be saying last names anymore. I'll let our members go ahead and introduce their guests.
So I have 2 guests with me today. Teresa Villarreal is taking us out today. I'm sorry, Kristen, my bad. Sorry, small. And Samantha Weldon is also considering joining our club.
I think we have one more visitor, Randy Griffin from the Cottages.
Randy Griffin.
Here we go.
I'm from the Cottages at the owner of the Cottages.
Awesome.
And we have, what is it, $327.
Awesome. Keep picking winning ticket here. Thank you. All right, and the number is 227-5770. What? Oh, great. Jimmy. All right, Jimmy. Draw a card. 10 of hearts. Is it going nice?
Close. Very close.
All right.
Thank you, Nelson. Alfie, did you want to say something to the group?
I'm a district membership and I got word to go at 5 or 6 new members. Listen, we lost a lot of members this year in our district, as you can imagine. I was so thrilled to hear that you got this going on in your club. I couldn't miss to drive up to the Claxon to be part of it, to see it, watch it, look at it. We're going to start a brand new year, July 1st. And I was kind of going into it down and out. You changed my attitude about that. I'm going into the new year now. Looking forward to what Rotary can do. Congratulations. Let's go Rotary Club.
Unfortunately, 3 of the people that were inducted couldn't be here. And as all you know, Jan is our assistant district governor, so we're glad to have you here. So, any prayer requests, William? Don't have any. Don't have them. Okay. Jack asked everybody to make sure they sign in. Last week we didn't have everybody sign in, so it's important to sign in because we have a meal count that we have to deal with. Any other announcements? Okay, we'll move right into the induction. Get my notes here. So today we have Jason Reiner and Jan, Brett Montreux and Susan Allen, and Ori Thomas and Link Boyer. Come on up.
I'll And Jay's here.
Jay's here. You want to get inducted or not?
Yes.
Okay, because Dr. Price isn't here. Dr. Price is the one who nominated
Okay
him.
with Jay.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's it. So. here's- Who? Okay. And- Okay. So we have Lynn, and Jan's gonna do hers, and Jennifer will do Jay. So fellow Rotarians, it's a privilege and pleasure today to welcome into membership our club Cam, Jason, Brett, Ori, Jason, and Jay. So they've been proposed. The proposals have been reviewed in accordance with the Constitution and bylaws of the club. We now proceed to admit you to the membership of the Rotary Club of Milledgeville, and so to the Fellowship of Rotary throughout the world. It has already been explained to you that the ideal of Rotary is service. Our principal motto is service above self, and the object of this club and all Rotary clubs is to encourage and foster the ideal as a basis of worthy enterprise. Now I have the pleasure of asking your proposals to pin on the Rotary emblem, which we expect you to wear with pride. So, for Corey. This is Jason's. Yep.
Yeah, good job, yeah. Thank you.
Laura's on it.
Okay.
Heads right here.
This way, you want us to step on that side?
I guess so, yeah. Let's all do that. Get all on one time. Like. Hey, Joe, get on in here. Scoot. Yes, that was good. There we go.
Thank you, Laura.
Good job, man.
Okay, happy dollars.
All right. Hey, I want to welcome my new members today. We're glad to have you. And so my dollar today will be twofold. One for that, and then two, we'll celebrate somebody's life. One of my great friends of my family is in hospice right now back home. And but boy, they had a great influence on my life. So every time you get a breath, man, you appreciate it. And so I'm celebrating their life with us today too. And so I want to do something different. So today, Stephen and I was talking about this. So, you know, when you call on people, sometimes you, what's their name? What's their name? So tell us what your name is today, okay? Because you may not have your name tag on. You may be sitting with somebody, you know, for years. You may not know them. So tell us what your name is today, okay? Last thing is, they bring up here to do is positive stuff. Somebody asked me today, so why are you so positive? Let me tell you one tip that I want to give everybody. I cut Cablevision off about 6 months ago. It's the greatest thing I ever did in my life. And I don't watch news. I do not watch the news. Now, if there's a hurricane or something, you know what I'm saying? But boy, when you click on that news And then that story comes in, boy, they're trying to get that opinion to you. It changes you. I don't listen to it. So I love it. I don't know what's going on in the world. I know what's happening in my house, our community, but I appreciate it. I'm telling you, try that. You stop watching that news. It's bad stuff out there. All right. I asked Jimmy, I said, Jimmy, you got any money, anything possible? Come on. He said, I don't know if I got any money. He said, well, I might borrow some. Well, you just got $10. So I'm going to see what happens here. What's your name?
Jimmy Eubanks,
Jimmy Eubanks. What's possible today?
all the new members,
Yes.
and we got Ron Michael in the building.
Yes, yes, we appreciate you, Ron, being here. Thank you, yes, thank you, thank you. All right, what's your name? Randy Stewart, what's possible?
I like to think, see all these chairs go to me.
Yes, yes, you are correct. And we're glad to be back outside. All right, tell us your name.
Karen Brooks.
Karen Brooks.
All of you know, or most of you remember Ava, my granddaughter, who is a junior Rotarian. She's been visiting with our club for like since she was 3. She just in the last month got her driver's license. Good morning.
Thank you, Karen. All right, what's your name?
Larry Mullins,
Hey, Mo.
oldest daughter, graduated high school.
Hey, hey. All right, what's your name? Debbie Johnson. What you got?
Raised to be Rotarians, and I had 2 kids at all ages, and got out of school, and they're actually home in my life.
All right, who got it? What's your name?
I got Jennifer Waller.
Jennifer.
On May 22nd, I went to U.S. Duathlon National Championships in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and won my age group.
Yeah. What's your name?
Tom Glover.
Tom Glover.
All the new members and existing members.
Yes. You got to have it. Yes. What's your name? Aaron Andrews. Yes, thank you. Good job, good job. Let's see. Anybody else today? Huh, there we go. Yes, yes. What's your name? Laura Thompson.
I'd like to see all the members that's watching us today. Those guys over there from the district, good to see those faces. And
We appreciate it. Good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody giving us some positive feedback today. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell.
Yes, thank you.
Aaron, you want to introduce our guest?
So today I get to introduce Matt Davis. I think probably most of us in the room know him. He's been the curator of the All Governors Mansion for a long time, but he's taken on some new roles with a couple of other museums, and he's here to tell us about Andalusia today.
Or hoping the technology works here for a second. I just wanted to say thanks to all of you for the invitation today. This is my first in-person speaking engagement since I think February of 2019. So this or 2020. So this is kind of nice to be back in the saddle of things once again. And here we go. So into that. What I wanted to do today was to kind of give you some updates about what has been happening at Andalusia, which of course is the home of Flannery O'Connor. And if you've been driving down 441 in all the last 3.5 years, you've noticed there's been a flurry of activity at the site as we have been working very steadily to restore that location, become yet another tourism asset for our community. So what I'd like to do today in about 20 minutes or less for a public historian that's saying something is to kind of give you kind of a snapshot overview of the history of the site and what we are doing and our long-term plans out there, which will include a new visitor center that I'm very excited to share a little bit of information for you about today. So first and foremost, I am part of what is called the Department of Historic Museums at Georgia College, which is my title officially is Director of Historic Museums, which runs the 3 historic assets for the university, which includes Andalusia, Georgia's Old Governor's Mansion, and the Sally Ellis Davis House. And these are really vital tourism assets for our community. Small and Rebecca here saying this. For business folks in the community, for every dollar that is spent at a museum, $5 is spent back into the community. And if you think about this ratio, it's not just the dollar that's being spent there, but someone's going to go get ice cream or get some lunch. They're going to fill up their car with gas. They're going to stay in a hotel. So these are sound investments for the community, and as a unit of Georgia College, it's a wonderful town and gown relationship we have there, as these are some of the most visible units that we have external to the university, and is really helping with economic development community. Pre-pandemic, we were averaging about 17,000 visitors a year across these three platforms. And for community size of Milledgeville, which is about 34,000 visitors, give or take, that is a great ratio in terms of bringing folks into our community. And since we have reopened the sites back in early August of last year, even with pandemic restrictions, we have seen a steady increase in return tourism that's really starting to take off over the last few weeks. So I'm hopeful that we will go through this little speed bump moving forward and continue to be a really economic asset for our community here in this respect. But today's about Andalusia. So let us talk about first and foremost what Andalusia is. Andalusia had its origins first settled in 1814 as a cotton plantation with about 1,000 acres of total property, which encompasses the side of 441 that you're familiar with Andalusia today, plus where the Honda dealership, the hotels, Ford dealership, all that was located was all originally part of that location. We have done archaeological investigations there, which has also suggested Native American settlements were also present at the property. So this is an evolving story. But from our research on the history of the site, we can now note that Nathan Hawkins actually built the main house that you see standing there with Flannery, who was a former mayor of Milledgeville at the time. And we have also documented up to 100 enslaved persons living on the site. We are currently researching to broaden our interpretation of Andalusia for the period prior to Flannery O'Connor's time there, so that we can tell a more complete picture in future exhibits and an upcoming visitor center. But our predominant period of importance and significance is the time period in which Flannery O'Connor resided at the property. Flannery O'Connor was born on March 25th, 1925 in Savannah, Georgia, to parents Edward and Regina O'Connor, and would go on to become one of the most internationally known figures in Georgia literature, and really is kind of one of the major forces behind Southern Gothic literature types of the mid-20th century. So you could put her like on a Faulkner kind of level in terms of her period of significance. She would matriculate from what is now called Georgia College in 1945, would receive her master's degree at the State College of Iowa, and getting a degree in MFA in creative writing. And frankly was heading to New York to basically take her place in the literary scene in New York City. But on returning home for Christmas in 1950, she got off the train here in Milledgeville and was said to look like death warmed over by one of her family members, and was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune disease which had killed her father and eventually would take her own life as well. As a result of this diagnosis, she moved back to Milledgeville permanently in the summer of 1951 and would live out her days at Andalusia, where she would complete the bulk of her literary work, which included over 30 short stories, 2 novels, and 100 literary critiques, which stand today among the pantheon of American literature. Probably you read some of these stories at one point along the way. Most famous is A Good Man is Hard to Find in terms of her overall stories. And of course, the novel Wise Blood is something that also people are relatively familiar with into this. Now, following O'Connor's death, her family had monetized the property and used it as a dairy operation, and later used it for beef farming, but by the mid-1970s had more or less abandoned everyday use of the property and had shut the facility down except for occasional visits, or would allow certain class groups onto the property. Following her mother's death at the age of 99 in 1995, the family maintained it for the next 5 years. But in the early 2000s began discussions to turn it into an open public site. And in 2003, opened Andalusia for public tours under the Flannery O'Connor Andalusia Foundation. It would run the site until August of 2018, or 17, excuse me, when it was then gifted to Georgia College to begin our operations. So that is a pretty big timeline kind of condensed together into one. And when Georgia College took possession of this property through a gift, this is a complete gift that was given to our university foundation, which included all assets, all collections, all buildings, and about 500 acres of land. I was tasked by the university to then try to figure out what we were going to do with the historic resources of the property. And so we'll begin a story about how we have transformed the site that had been operated under a nonprofit to what we're doing today as a full-fledged museum. Well, first and foremost, we closed it. We closed it down because there was a chance to catch our breath and get our heads together about what we were going to do there. Second, we needed to do an assessment of the property. What condition was it in? What did we need to do? And what could we do to better tell the story of O'Connor at Andalusia? And so for a year, we worked very systematically to do some stabilization repairs to the site, We removed some hazards that were present on the property. We instigated some safety measures to the site to make it safe for our visitors. And we hired the first fully professional museum staff at the property, which includes a curator and myself, and wrote an interpretation or a way to tell the story of the site so that when visitors came to the property, they would have a guided, researched, and true experience of what this property was throughout its entire history. And so the three phases you see here include repair, installation of collections, and beginning the tours. And I would like to say that before and after shots are usually your best way of doing something. So I've prepared a few of those for you there. Starting to my left, and for those on the camera, I hope you can see this as well, was what had been used as the gift store space for the property previously. And some of you are nodding your heads by recognizing this. Historically, it had been the farm office of Regina O'Connor. And a big lack of the story that was being told there previously was really about the interplay between Flannery O'Connor, who was doing the writing, and her mother, who was supporting her in these efforts, and the Sharks and Jets routine that happened between her and her mom. Now, I don't know about you all, but I would never want to move back in with my parents again. But imagine being in your late 20s, having to move back in with mom and having that constant kind of battle back and forth into this, which to me is really funny because many of the antagonists in O'Connor stories are later aged Southern women. It's tough way to exercise the demons about her mother, obviously. But it was also a good way for us to tell about the farm operation, which really was not being discussed at the site. So first and foremost, we got rid of the gift store and moved it into what had been formerly an office space, which is actually her mom's bedroom, but more on that in a second. We then did systematic paint analysis on the property, discovered the original colorations, which you actually see that kind of grayish paint just above the guy with the cap who's doing some work, which is one of our wonderful facilities operations staff at Georgia College, who do a heck of a job in preservation of this. We also researched the furnishings. We researched the facility. We researched the electrical. We figured out everything that was present in space that needed to be done and did that repair work. And finally, we located the artifacts. To the O'Connor family's credit, they threw nothing away. And I literally mean nothing away. We have found everything associated with the property. And so thus we were able to put back in the original desk, many of the farm documents her mother worked from, her ordering book for farm equipment, and to tell that story. Now, we are in an age where truth, I think, is becoming more important. And the more truth that we can tell in a story and an interpretation for us is extremely important. And we are peeling back every day layers of new truths at Andalusia that we can share with our visitors and really kind of give that story credence. Because O'Connor was not just a person who sat in a back room and wrote. She lived, she breathed, she laughed, she drank martinis. These are things that we can tell people out and humanize this figure that many people still don't know much about. And I just like the fact that her and her mom had arguments. Outside of that was the fact, too, that we restored what was the most key important room in the space, and that was her bedroom. This was the space that she did most of her literary output, and for many of our visitors, this is their graceland. We have seen individuals break down literally in tears for standing in the space because it is the creative environment. It is the windows that she looked out of to be inspired to write her stories. It was the environment she was in. And we discovered a space that, while it had a lot of its assets there, the plaster was in very poor state of repair. There were certain areas of space that very literally could have collapsed on us if we continued to allow visitation into the space. And we need to do a lot of work and assessment on the collections as well to make sure what was there was really what was there. Well, through this work, we did, again, stabilization repairs and figured out the plaster work, but we also brought back some things that had not been present at the site for over 40 years, which included her original desk and chair, which had been given to the university for use in our special collections. But through a gracious partnership with our provost office, we were allowed to bring these artifacts and put them back into their location. And so people see a true aspect of this. And if you may notice, there's a very large, and this picture doesn't really do it justice, just to the right of her crutches, there's a very big chifforobe or wardrobe that sits there that she placed intentionally in front of her desk to give her a little bit of a buffer zone between her and her mom's bedroom, so she had a hot second to finish a thought or finish a sentence before she had to find her mom. And that's a great window into that story. And for those of you who've had mothers, you're all laughing here about this one for sure. Now, as we move forward into that, the reopening of the site occurred on June 19th, 2018. And we immediately noticed a rush of activity into the space. Web traffic increased on all Milledgeville tourism sites about this. We have seen a rapid increase in our social media presence, which averages about 2,000 people engaging on any Facebook posting we make from around the world. And continue to bring visitors in. We had a group in from Italy a couple of weeks ago. I mean, so these are individuals, it's not just people driving in from Macon. We are bringing people around the world to the site. And when they arrive on the property, they get a 30-minute guided tour of the main house, and we have a virtual tour that they get to explore the grounds for about 45 minutes. You also get a chance to walk the property as we have a 1.5 mile nature trail on the property for people to explore, and or it can just come out and read, picnic, take photographs. And we even have some of our stories in a waterproof box on the porch to encourage people to sit on the rocking chairs and spend the day if they want to read stories out there. It is meant to be a space to inspire and to educate. And that is what we have been doing since we reopened the property at that time. And these are just a few other images of some things we've done rather recently. We have just restored the back parlor room of Andalusia. For those of you who may remember the space previously, it was kind of painted a coral pink color and they had a slideshow going in the space. But we found historic evidence and photographs of what the room looked like originally and brought back all the original pieces of space. So we've added to our interpretation portfolio. And really the historic pictures have been what's the fun part of telling this story. Because of just saying that this is the room that something happened in, we can go a little deeper than that. We can tell the stories about how the furniture arrived. We can tell how some of these things interplay with some of the stories, or why there was significance to her family and her life into the space, which again is a humanizing part of the thing that we are trying to do here and bringing this location to life. We are also working very hard to curate and do special exhibitions at the program. I have a fantastic curator on the site named Megan Anderson, who's been really working hard through our collections to highlight different pieces and different stories of O'Connor and her family's life. Most recently, we finished an exhibit on Flannery O'Connor's mother, Regina, called Madam O'Connor, Commander of the House, which was a direct quotation from a letter about her mother. Again, you can kind of see the fun interplay into this. And from a gracious donation of family photographs of the family, grown-up Mary Flannery, we exhibited for the first time hundreds of photographs that had never been seen by anyone outside the O'Connor family. From this small start, it has gained a nucleus of interest that continues to snowball. And through that interest of support, we've been able to receive financial donations and also support from our legislators to continue to work towards what will eventually be about a $5 million restoration project at the site as we're peeling through the spaces. Now, other ways that we've engaged in this, we have a virtual blog series called Assorted Regards. It's also curated by Megan. And if you get a chance, check this out, because we have not only college students writing blog posts for this, part of Georgia College or external, but we have academics and our own staff that work and do this. We just made our most recent blog post yesterday. So if you're a blogger or someone who enjoys reading more about O'Connor, I would highly recommend taking a look at this resource. Some other things going on, it's archaeology. As a public historian, it is extremely important to look at the entire aspect of what a site can tell. And archaeology is a key component of letting us know what is no longer extant. We have done 4 archaeological digs on the property, which have revealed to us the locations of Flannery O'Connor's original peacock pens, which you'll see some product of that work. We have done excavation on a no longer extant original building to the site, and most recently have found evidence of 19th century outbuildings, which may have been an enslaved quarters and a blacksmith shop, that we will continue archaeological investigation on this fall to try to pinpoint what those locations are, which also revealed hundreds of artifacts for us. Now, the trick is with doing archaeology is when you make these discoveries, where do you put them? We don't really have a spot at the moment, but surprise coming up on that in a moment. We've also improved visitor safety at the space. For many, a long-time Milledgeville folks, you remember Andalusia was a blink and you may miss it kind of location in previous years. So one of the things that we did was, through the work and great work of our facilities office, was add an accel decel lane into the space, redo and open up the property to have a paved entry point, and its signage is actually eye-catching onto the property. If I'm proud of nothing else that I've done in Andalusia, it's that. Because if nothing else, people can find us now. Which, if I had $1 for every phone call we had to say, well, I think I mentioned you, where are you? And try to explain, well, if you see the car dealership, you've gone too far. It's not really the easiest way to do this. So, and it's a safe way to come into the space. I will tell you from my own personal life, trying to get out of there was a kind of a pray to God moment, and you hit the gas really hard and get across the street. So this is something I am personally very proud that we've been able to do. We've also engaged and added fire suppression systems and sprinkler systems to the space and completely redid the electrical, because we were dealing with the original 1930s electrical box when we first took over the property. And I will not say in polite company what the electrician said to us when he first came on site, but involves some laughter and some words I will not use here, and to say the least. Now, finally, we've also been engaged in active restoration, which included work to conserve the original well house to the rear of the property, including the farm's historic farm pump, which you can see there. We have just cleared out some of the farming aspects of the piece, which included a silage ditch where they used to dump all the grass clippings in, help feed the dairy cows and the later beef cows on the property, which we've made some preliminary discoveries. We think that was the trash dump for the farm. So this fall, we are also going to do archaeology in that ditch because one man's trash is my treasure, because that could definitely tell us a whole lot about what's been happening at the property. And finally, through those earlier archaeological digs and pinpointing the location of the regional peafowl runs, we've actually done the first phase of recreating those original peafowl runs on the property for our 2 peacocks on the site after and shortly. You have a little bit more room to run. So if you want to come visit some peacocks and not have to deal with them, come to Andalusia because you can look, but don't have to feed them into this. Now, finally, and the biggest piece of what I was asked to speak to you here about today is what is coming next. Through generous support of our local legislative delegation, we have received over $3 million, also through raised funds, to begin construction within the next 4 to 6 months on a new interpretive center at Andalusia. This visitor center will be just under 4,000 square foot facility that will include collection storage space, exhibitions, public meeting space, a gift store, and thankfully bathrooms, because right now in Andalusia we have a functioning toilet on the entire property. This will actually give us some facilities to house larger groups and give us an ability to remove all non-historic functions out of the main house. By putting it all into this facility, we will have a state-of-the-art world-class facility that will be located in the front field right from the highway. You will see right where it is, that we can then begin to do the rest of the work on the restoration on site in Andalusia. Because right now, I don't have the facility or the room to go any further. With the construction of this facility, we will have a space that we can do things just like we're doing here today at Andalusia. We can welcome scholars, but we can also continue that important restoration work as we move forward to restore Andalusia to the condition and look just like we've done with the Governor's Mansion and the Sally Davis House. Now, we are very excited, to say the least, about this. And I hope you enjoy that front facade image. This is be looking, if you were standing in the driveway and looking down the hill, this will be the elevation front that you get to see into that. It is a modern building, but it definitely blends into the farm architecture, which is something we were hoping to do. And this was done by a firm called the DSI Group, which has done some work here in Milledgeville and has a satellite office in Atlanta. And we are also working with some local contractors and subs into this. So we're trying to keep the money here as we can on this, as Georgia College is certainly supportive of doing. Now, I have done a lot in a little bit of time here, and it's always a hard part of doing these presentations is trying to cram as much information into a small window as possible. But I am, as you can tell, very excited about what is going on in Andalusia. And 3 years and a pandemic, we've accomplished a great deal, to say the least, and they're trying to keep that momentum going forward. But we are looking and excited to have this as another asset for our local community, and we'll continue to drive business, drive tourism, and continue to make Milledgeville one of the regional tourism clubs that it truly is. But thank you all again for your invitation today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions I can. Yes, ma'am.
Kudos to you on what you're doing. It's amazing what you've done.
Thank you so much.
So it's really impressive. Explain to me, you might have said it, the new facility, where will that be?
So if you come into the driveway, and there's that open historic field immediately to the left when you come in the driveway, it's going to be right there. And if you're really curious, we've actually staked out the location where it's going to be. So if you drive on the property, look for the stakes, there it is. So, thank you. And the good thing about that location is it'll be very visible from the road and it'll be very obvious where to go when you come into the property. So, yes, sir.
Congratulations again, very impressive. Thank you. If I heard you correctly, I think I heard of the new building is going to be collection storage. Collection.
So for in museum parlance, we have a bunch of stuff that we never display. And you have to put it somewhere. Right now, we have an assortment of storage buildings around Bolton County, which is not the most conducive way to do business with that. So this facility will include a collection storage facility, and we put all of our artifacts that are not on display in one location. And we'll have an exhibit room that we can bring those artifacts that are not necessarily for the house or other areas that we can display in there and do special exhibitions. So, music, an old curator like me, if we have storage, we're happy. I mean, it's, you know, like houses, no one ever built enough closets. So there it is. You know. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering how you modify your hours of operation.
We've actually, at this point, increased them a little bit since the previous organization. We're open every day, Monday to the public. So we're open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4, and Sundays from 2 to 4 of tours on the hour, and the last tour beginning at 4. But what we're hoping to do with this new facility, which will have some external lighting, is to perhaps offer some more night events. And that's where we're heading towards that location, because right now it does get very dark in Andalusia in a hurry. And on your tables, I put out some of our brochures about the site that's got some more information about that. Thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
How many acres of land is that? Where is it?
So it's,
How was the boundary going?
so at this point, so Andalusia as it exists today is 520 acres, and it's on a wedge. If you start just past Walmart and go to the car dealership that I think is the 5-star place on the end there, that is Andalusia proper. And it goes all the way back to US 212. So it's a fairly sizable chunk of land. We have at Georgia College 495 acres on that wedge. I am responsible for a 45-acre historic core wedge of that, while the rest of the property is held in trust and conservation by our university foundation. The historic core that I'm responsible for is owned by the state of Georgia. So it's the entire thing was given to the university foundation, but the historic aspect of the museum was carved out and become state property. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to any long-term plans for the rest of the property?
So after we do, so into this, for our long-term goal is to continue the restoration of that historic core. Once the new facility is built, we will aggressively restore the main house and also stabilize 2 outbuildings that are on the property, a calf and horse barn. They're not in the most solid condition into this. And we're hoping to continue to do archaeology and landscape restoration so we can open up some of those fields and kind of give that more of that true sense of what it was like when it was a calf and dairy farm. For the remainder of the property, I think at this point, the long-term plan is to hold it just in conservation. But I can't speak to that because that's not, thankfully, I only have to worry about 50 acres versus, or 40 acres, excuse me, instead of 495 on that front. So, any other questions? Well, thank you for your time today.
And so we give our speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you, Matt. Do we have any other announcements? So Alfie, Ron, Jan, you're welcome to come back anytime, as well as our other visitors. And with that, we are adjourned.